you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Thursday. It's a crazy day. Meta is just crushing it. The stock's nearly doubled since November when I made my J trade. Big news there, Molly.
Up like 28%, I think, today. So we're going to compare strategies here and then advantages, because we compare it with Snap's earnings, which were almost the same, but did not produce the same result. We'll break down why a little bit. And also, everybody's ripping today because the Fed hiked rates by only 25 bips. We're going to talk a little macro about what's next for the economy.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear they're ending their action of hiking rates, and the market seems to have concluded from their comments about deflation or the de-escalation of inflation, whatever term, but it was kind of dovish, and the soft landing is a possibility, or a mild recession. So that's good news for the economy. But the labor shortage remains, and so we talk a little bit about automation in the face of this crazy labor shortage and what we're seeing in the real world.
Yep. And then we wrap up the news with a quick update on generative AI, story of the year. We have entered the AI era. ChatGPT hit 100 million monthly active users. Google is already testing a competitor, and Bing sees a chance. Microsoft sees a chance and leap ahead.
Yeah, they're going to incorporate it. And then Microsoft Teams is incorporating ChatGPT as well. So this is extraordinary that ChatGPT got to 100 million monthly active users in only 2 months. It took TikTok 9 months to get to 100 million. And then we have Lon Harris on for another edition of This Week in Streaming.
Oscar nomination, Spotify earnings, James Gunn in the DC universe.
And we'll talk about my favorite new rom-com, episode 3 of HBO smash hit, The Last of Us.
It's going to be just a fantastic show.
Yeah, stick with us.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by House of Macadamias is the next big health trend. Get 20% off your first purchase at houseofmacadamias.com/twist by using code TWIST20. Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub helps all founders build a better startup at a lower cost from day one. Startups get up to $150,000 in Azure credits, access to OpenAI APIs, free dev tools like GitHub, technical advisory, access to mentors and experts, and so much more. There is no funding requirement, and it only takes minutes to join. Sign up today at aka.ms/thisweekinstartups. And Anyplace. Do your best work in your favorite cities. Anyplace lets you rent furnished apartments that include equipped workspaces and gigabit speed internet. Available for 30 days or longer. Get $250 off your booking with the code TWIST250 at anyplace.com/twist.
All right, everybody, it's Thursday. Lots going on. We'll have Lon Harris to talk about all of the things happening in streaming, from Spotify to DC to HBO's. What is the
winning streak? Last of Us. Yeah.
Last of Us, episode 3. My favorite rom-com of all time.
Just gonna have to do it. Maybe this is time for me to face my favorite rom-com. I stepped on that great line.
My favorite rom-com. No, don't worry about it. Everybody's got it. All right, but there's a lot of news going on. I guess top amongst the news is Meta. I think that's the number one story.
I think so, yes. I think that we have to acknowledge that, one, J. Cal has played this perfectly.
Got lucky.
Like a maestro.
Yes.
Like he took that cello and he just made us weep with his J trade. It's mercenary at exactly the right moment.
In doing this J trading, you can go check out jtrading.com. I said, you know what? I'm just going to put a little bit of money in a box. I'm going to just start trading and take it out of this. I had some money laying in like a perfectly balanced portfolio account, like a mutual fund type thing. So let me see if I can trade it myself to see if I can learn lessons about trading. And one of the lessons I learned, and I said it to you, was I'm not going to go with my heart or my ethics or my morals. I'm going to go with the pride that Zuckerberg has and never losing in his life, and now being faced with everybody telling him he's a loser. Let's see if he responds to this. And that night, on a Sunday night, he said he's laying off 10,000 people. I was like, oh, he's listening to people. So I put an order in when it was at $90. It got filled at $94. And I think today it's trading at $180 or something.
Yeah, the stock is up over
196.
It's the best trading day in a decade for Meta, if not ever.
Yeah.
Like by the end of the day, it could be ever. Up well over 20%, I believe, after Meta beat revenue estimates. And most importantly, and this is what I find so amazing, right? Is like you played the game perfectly and Zuck played Wall Street perfectly. He did the layoffs. He announced a $40 billion share buyback.
Incredible.
And he stopped talking about the metaverse for like 5 freaking minutes. And boom, scene. Like no fundamentals have changed at Meta. They laid off like some, but not all of the people they hired during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Massive share buyback.
To 75,000 people, I think, is the rough estimate.
I think so. I mean, like an insane amount of people were laid off, right? 11,000 people. But I think that was still maybe less or about as many as they had hired during the pandemic. Reality Labs, I think, still lost double-digit billions, maybe something like that. But he turned that game around. He turned that story right around. He did the things that Wall Street wanted, and J. Cal won big.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. I think looking at the newfound focus, they are getting focused on the existing business, cutting costs, and leaning into AI, and maybe cutting some of the costs associated with the metaverse. And so, great. Revenue is down year over year a little bit, 4%, which you would expect in a down market for an advertising-based business. Reality Labs generated $727 million in revenue in Q4.
I think
they lost a ton of money.
But they lost $4.2 billion in Q4.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot of money.
Net income was down 55% year over year, $4.6 billion. I mean, this is why I keep saying, like, I actually don't think the fundamentals have changed. I don't think there is a lot of like sudden new austerity or a change in focus. He's just playing the game better. Honestly, he's playing with Wall Street in mind right now.
Yeah. And if you look at Snap's earnings, they were flat year over year. So slightly better on a percentage basis.
Yeah.
And they lost $288 million, $375 million down. So they're up 17% year over year. So Snap's growing, not revenue, but the number of users. And they have that paid version for $4 a month. You can get some premium Snap features, and they got 2 million people paying for that. So that to me is the most fascinating. Half a percentage point, 50 basis points of the users are now paying. I wonder if that can get to 5%. And if they get to 5%, could that be 20 million people at some point paying for a social network? And maybe that's a little bit of extra money, but
maybe
they don't have the ability to do buyback. So
I think that's probably the big difference. Snap is up today. Everything's up today, right? Today is on a ripper because good transition.
Yes.
Snap is up, but its stock immediately dropped 10% upon earnings yesterday, whereas Meta, of course, through the roof. But yes, everybody is feeling great and in the green today because the Fed hiked 25 basis points yesterday, 0.25%, and noted that jobs and wage data are cooling off. And then I don't know if you watched the press conference at all, but I started playing a little fizzy water drinking game with the word disinflation. Like he actually said more than once, we are at the beginning of a disinflation curve.
Yeah.
Like he was like, I don't know what's going to happen, right? We can't say we're there yet, but the tone was very different. And that word, I think, they're so careful. Like you parse the Fed down to the like emphasis on a syllable. And so for him to repeat, I think over and over, disinflation is a big signal.
They knew that we were getting to the end of this, right? Because they raised 75 basis points in November, 50 basis points in December, 25 basis points, I guess, at the beginning of February here. And they're going to do it again, another 25 points. And that puts them from 0 all the way up to 4.5 or 4.75, whatever that is. And some people said, hey, maybe he goes to 5.25 or something. But we knew we were getting to the end of this. And the question was, did it have any impact? And obviously it's had an impact. And I think he was saying like a lot of this was yet to be seen. So if it's yet to be seen, I think that means they see their actions will continue, getting to 4.5 or whatever. They see their actions are going to slow everything down. And then people obviously trade ahead of the market. So they want to get into stocks now thinking, well, maybe next year or the end of this year, they go up.
Right.
But I don't think there's going to be a cut or anything, but it's made me feel a little bit better about the economy, that maybe they did the right thing by moving so fast. The Fed, that is, after doing the wrong thing by moving so slow. let me tell you about House of Macadamias. Yes, this brand has a special place in my heart because the founders, Carmen and Brandon, well, they're Twist listeners. They've been listening to this podcast, and they told me that they got inspired to start this company after listening to this very pod and reading my book, Angel. In fact, their first angel investment wound up hitting it big, and they used the returns on that angel investment to start a nut business. These people are crazy. They're nuts. They started a macadamia nut business, and it is delicious. You can see the graphics on the screen. All nuts are not created equal. Peanuts, almonds, cashews, walnuts, those are, they're good nuts. But macadamias are the elite great nuts. They're higher in omega-7s. And that's been linked to fat loss and natural collagen. They have more healthy fats. They have less carbs, and every product is vegan, keto, and paleo. I love these. I love the dark chocolate covered ones. That's just me. They have beautiful macadamia bars. Buy some of these. Keep them in your desk drawer. That's a healthy snack for you to have. They also have some zesty, spicy ones if you're having that kind of a day. I like to do that if I have like a nice iced tea, and I can pair it with a zesty salsa dry roasted. So here is your call to action. Support a founder and have great macadamia nuts that are healthy and delicious. houseofmacadamias.com/twist. houseofmacadamias.com/twist. Right now, you get 20% off by using the promo code TWIST20. That's right. 20% off. houseofmacadamias.com/twist.
I do agree that I think moving this quickly probably worked really well. We're still at the only sort of note of caution there, not to get too macro, is that we're still kind of at the mercy now. And by we, I mean Fed sentiment this was also kind of a big theme of the press conference, is heavily dependent on what happens with the labor market. And as we know, the labor market is still artificially constrained by the fact that our borders are effectively closed. And so we're not bringing in new workers. Like the Fed can't do anything about labor supply.
Yes.
And yet is looking at wage growth and extremely low unemployment as almost like negative signals in terms of inflation. So
they want to see unemployment go up. We have record low unemployment. Some states, I was looking at like Utah or something, had like under 2% unemployment. There are places in this country where like they can't find workers, and then companies are holding on to workers. So if you've got 3 or 4, waiters or chefs or retail workers or whatever it is, you don't want to give them up because, it's finding one's going to be hard, I guess, in some areas. Nurses, doctors come to mind as well with those shortages that we talked about here. And, that's something they can't control.
Yeah.
So I guess they're going to give up trying to control that and just be okay with inflation slowing down. And then if people have jobs and they're decently paying jobs, they can still spend money, but maybe people have burned off all that savings. So I think
maybe, but that's what I'm saying about that's the one note of caution still, is that at least right now, the Fed is not signaling that they're okay with where labor is. They're signaling that they're concerned about increasing wage growth and increasingly tight employment. But so it's sort of like, are they going to, so the big question was, is the Fed going to punish the broader economy for what is effectively a supply and demand problem?
Right. I think
we're
going to have our other representatives in government get together and say, okay, the Fed has pointed this out. We need to have more reasonable immigration. If everybody in this country is going to retire early, if 7% of the country is going to opt out of working, that's 69% peak labor participation we had in 99, 2000, 2001 timeframe is going to be 62% now. That's 7-point swing, which is about 10% of the overall active workforce. If those 10% are not coming back to work, people are retiring early, people died from COVID.
Or not even early. Like boomer age they're retired.
But there's also this phenomenon of people who did so well with their homes or stock.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, right. And they're like, COVID scared me. I don't want to go to work anymore. And they just, it's this whole combined thing. Yeah. And all it adds up to is there are not enough people for the job. And then that starts to constrain. Like I will tell you, I'm not that interested in going to a restaurant right now. Or like even staying in a hotel isn't as fun as it used to be because there aren't.
Because the service sucks.
I'm sorry. Like I don't want to be a big diva, but the service sucks. Like it sucks to be in a restaurant
and have the price at
they don't have enough people. It's more expensive.
Sucks. Yeah.
And you sit there for like an hour because they literally don't have a human to like bring you the check. It's just like not fun. And so then that starts to become a spending drag because I'm like, I'll just cook.
I have to say, I went to a dumpling. There's like this really cool dumpling place that's really hot in San Mateo. And they use, my wife and I were talking about it, how much we love this toast system. You get to the table, you scan, especially when you're with kids,
I love
especially
that.
young kids. You scan the logo, you get it knows what table you're at. I already have a Toast login, so I'm logged in automatically. It's got my payment. It does Apple Pay. So it is so smooth and easy. My wife scans the same thing. It knows the two of us are at the same table. So it says you and Jade, they added this to this Toast interface. It's brilliant. You and Jade are ordering. So then Jade, I had to step out for a phone call. She orders two things. And then it says, here's what you ordered. Here's what Jade ordered. Split the bill. Now we're married, so we pay the bill together. But if you had four people at the table, it would be like you each have your own check. You pay the check at the table through the phone. You order through the phone. They print the ticket. They tape the ticket to your table. When the dish comes, they just check it off. So, if the kids ate all these one type of dumplings and we just immediately order another one. No flagging a waiter.
Yep.
No worrying about the bill. And then my wife was like, oh, I paid the bill already. And I was like, yeah, I want to order them dessert. Who cares? Just order two more desserts. It's not like a big deal.
And then pay. I know, totally.
They have so few servers there. It is unbelievable, the efficiency of it. So that's where we're going, right? And the same thing I understand at McDonald's. I don't eat at McDonald's, but I went to one recently because I was getting my snow tires changed. It was the only place open in Sacramento. So I went to a McDonald's. I ate a McDonald's breakfast sandwich. It was horrific. Egg McMuffin was terrible, but the hash brown was terrible. So but the hash brown was life changing. I would literally go there and order 4 hash browns.
Yeah,
coffee was good actually, not bad for like a black, hardcore coffee.
Yeah,
but you ordered from a giant touchscreen, and it's like amazing.
Wow, you got that was just rolled out. I think not very long ago. It doesn't. I guess it makes sense that would be this would be the region. Yeah. I mean, that is the way. It's just only automation can solve some of these labor problems. But the thing is, automation can't clean a hotel room. Automation can't treat your. We have a massive vet shortage.
That being said, another anecdote. I was in Miami, and there's a new hotel chain, Citizen M.
Yeah,
it's $175 a night, $200 a night. It reminds me of the W Hotel. You check in yourself. You get off the elevator. You just check in at a kiosk again. And it gives you a key. Now, there's a person there if you have a problem, but you can just check yourself in. And then you have an iPad in your room. By default, they clean your room every 3 days, not every day.
Yeah. Fine.
And
totally fine.
If you do that, they donate $3 a day or €3 a day to charity. So you see on your iPad where you control everything through your iPad, and you can check it off. I want my room clean. Here's your stay. You're here for 3 days. And it says, which days do you want to clean? And it's off, on. But I can make it on, which I did. Right. I want my room cleaned every day if I'm staying in a hotel. But I was just like, wow, this is incredible. It's so affordable. And I can pick what hotel. I could stay in a $1,000 hotel, $200 hotel. Probably doesn't make a difference ultimately for me at this point in my career. But I'm like, I'm staying at Citizen M. I don't want to blow $800. And the room was perfectly clean. The bedding was amazing. It's right in Brickell. So you come downstairs and you're in the middle of all the action. It's like, this is incredible. Cheaper than an Airbnb, in fact.
Yeah. And it will be about wisely integrating those kind of features and automation so that it's not a situation where dude, I just need a fork, but there's no one to bring me a fork and you don't have a fork anyway. It's sort of if I'm in a hotel, I need you to take care of me a little bit and I like it. That's why I'm in a hotel because I don't have to be mom today.
I saw these hotels, though, in Europe a decade ago, and I think it's actually a Scandinavian company. They do have these business hotels that are meant to be, you're kind of on your own.
Super self-serve.
Yeah. If you forgot toiletries, you just go downstairs to the front desk. They literally had the toiletries in a basket, self-serve, and you just swipe and pay for them, if you need them. So I think that this is where the world is moving with labor.
It's all going to be different. Exactly. We're going to have to overcome labor with innovation because we do not have enough labor. Yeah.
Cafe X, this robotic coffee machine that we invested in, it had a really tough time doing stores in San Francisco. It was horrific. Regulations, vandalism, the whole cohort of things that could be horrible in San Francisco, but they put them in SFO. The two machines are making almost $1 million a year. It's the highest per square foot revenue of any thing in SFO or any airport anywhere, because you go for less than an hour a day, half an hour to change the milk, clean it, just check on the machine, maintain the machine.
Awesome.
So if they could have 100 of these with a Dunkin' Donuts logo on it or something, you could have coffee machines. I don't know if the last time you've traveled was, but they're so short-staffed at Starbucks. What was the line like for you at a Starbucks at the airport? Have you seen the lines? to just try to
insane.
get a Starbucks. It was absurd.
It's insane. Mm-hmm.
Like you literally would take the next flight to if you wanted to get a Starbucks. There must have been 40 people online at Starbucks the last time I flew. It was nuts.
I mean, it's like, so we're just not, I keep thinking about this.
Yeah.
Like how unaccustomed Americans are to having this sort of like these occasionally bizarre, like Soviet-esque experiences where it's just like, you got to wait 2 hours for a coffee. And P.S. there's no eggs. And, like you might get literally it is so weird to go to the store and have there be no eggs. And, this has been ongoing in the pandemic, like so many things combining at once, but especially the labor shortage are just like, wow, it's, we're going to have a different expectation in life. And that might be great because we are really spoiled.
This is what happened in other countries. I saw it in Australia. You see it in Japan. And I saw it in Norway. Like I specifically saw this. I remember going places like that 10 years ago. And when the minimum wage was $6-7 here, $5-6-7 here in the United States, the minimum wage there was 15 or 20.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, you would see maybe some immigrants perhaps in these certain category of jobs. And you didn't. You saw people from Norway were busboys, were, cleaning the rooms. And you're like, okay, that's interesting. And it's like, they're being paid a lot of money to do that job. Mm-hmm. And they are protectionist. They don't allow people to immigrate into their country. And they allow those, what would normally be considered like entry-level jobs, first-rung jobs on the ladder. They kind of moved them up to third rung in terms of union protections, benefits, time off, and the hourly wage. In other words, being, cleaning hotel rooms in some countries is not something for immigrants. It's something for the people who live there. And so they're very nationalistic.
Like we have it. We want to have it all. We want to be giant divas and only have like amazing, awesome jobs, but then not pay people to do work that we need done and then be jerks about the service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Oh, America, you'll learn eventually.
Doing more with less is more important than ever, especially for startup founders. So if you are running a startup, the Microsoft for Startup Founders Hub is a total no-brainer for you. They're going to help you scale efficiently while preserving your runway. Founders Hub has the best startup program we've ever seen. It's absolutely ridiculous. They offer 6 figures in benefits, including, I kid you not, $150,000 in Azure credits. And you get access to OpenAI's APIs as well as the new Azure OpenAI service. And we talked about OpenAI so much on this podcast, you need to take a look at it and figure out what advantage can you get in your startup with OpenAI's new API. Free access to GitHub and Visual Studio is included in the Founders Hub. One-to-one technical advisory and expert help with topics like product, fundraising, and go-to-market, access to a network of mentors plugged into the startup world, free access to partners like LinkedIn and Bubble, which can help you build a quick MVP, and so much more. So here is your call to action. The Microsoft for Startup Founders Hub is open to everyone, whether you're in the idea phase or you're further along. And there is no funding requirement. It's a no-brainer, takes 5 minutes to apply, and startups can get massive benefits immediately. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write this down, aka.ms/thisweekinstartups. That's right, aka.ms/thisweekinstartup. Thanks to Microsoft for the Microsoft for Startup Founders Hub.
Hey, let's do a real quick
Speaking of
AI
efficiency
roundup,
and replacing humans.
Exactly. Speaking of that, the topic of the year, according to Semaphore sources, Microsoft will, and this is a big one, integrate GPT-4 into its Bing search engine in the, quote, coming weeks.
Whoa.
Now, GPT-4, this is where we should do a quick level set, which is that right now, everything that you have seen from ChatGPT that has blown your mind and made you think that like school is over and lawyers are over and most, careers are done and producers are on the ropes and whatnot, that's GPT-3.
Yeah.
And GPT-4 is the engine that they say is going to be faster and more powerful, like way more, crazy more, right? They're like, it'll be 1,000 times more powerful or whatever. Sam Altman at an event that I was at specifically said that GPT-4 would be a slow rollout, that they didn't want to like release it on society before it was ready. But apparently Microsoft is like, that's cool though. We'll do it. We can have it. Just us.
Yeah, I think what's happening right now is this thing has captured the imagination more than anybody expected because it's so good, it's so customizable that it has hit the zeitgeist in the same way TikTok, the iPhone, Bitcoin, different NFTs maybe to a lesser extent. But sometimes the technology captures people's imagination and they flow into it. This hit 100 million users, which to hit 100 million users, that normally takes years. And this thing has hit it in like months. What that means for somebody who got the pole position like Microsoft, they're going to want to squeeze this orange for every drop of juice. And it's putting them in the press. And I think it's going to attract people to the Office suite. So remember I said, they're going to incorporate this into Bing and it's going to cause Google to really move quickly.
Yep.
Google is testing their own version with their employees now.
Yep.
And I forgot what that's called, but I think it's called something like Apprentice or something. So
Apprentice Bard.
Yeah, they're
of course it
downplaying
is.
with the naming and the framing. Very important because half of the results are wrong. Some of the results are biased, as I showed the other day, like with like, hey, I said on ChatGPT, like, make me a play or write a poem about the Irish being drunks. And it was like, I can't do that, buddy. And I was like, okay, make me a poem about Irish loving beer. And it was like, oh, the Irish and the love of Guinness. And it was like, yeah, let's go.
Those drunken bastards.
So, and then people were like, hey, write a poem about how great Trump was. It's like, yeah, we can't really do that. It's like, write a poem about how great Biden is. It's like, oh, Biden is incredible.
Totally.
So I don't know if you saw this, but like now that they've proven some bias, which you predicted over and over again, since it's based on data sets,
which are based on humans,
is a little racist. And it turns out maybe it's part of like the left, not the right political party. So we're going to need to have a Rumble version of ChatGPT or something. I don't know.
Oh, God.
So today I saw our friend Sam Altman was defending the employees because the employees are now being attacked because it won't write Trump poetry.
It won't write Trump I did not know that.
Yeah, you can look it up. It's
you can't even.
If you ask it to say something nice about Trump, it's like, yeah.
That's the thing, right? Like it's built on human data sets.
Yeah.
And human data sets humans are super flawed and biased and weird and, like, but yeah, so regardless, that's where we are with it right now, right? It's flawed. It's wrong.
Yes.
It is probably going to put a lot of people out of work potentially immediately if ChatGPT-4 is as powerful as we think. Like, it will be really hard to defend
if it gets right answers,
law school, paralegals.
But does all the extra... What I'm trying to figure out, Molly, is I connected it to a Slack room, right? And I was like, hey, this is interesting. Like, if you could connect it to a Slack room, we did it. And then I noticed like everybody was playing with it. But then kind of like a parlor trick, it was like, well, I'm not getting actually good answers. So it's a nice research tool. It's a good starting point. Like a Google search can be a good starting point. Well,
that's what I'm saying is like, that's where we are with this. But because everybody is excited by it and seeing a bunch of dollars, we're like, let's go. Let's roll that sucker out. Let's make ChatGPT-4 part of Bing because Microsoft wants to win. And so like unintended consequences don't have to be unforeseen. And we are choosing to be like monkey see no evil about the unintended consequences because winning is on the table now.
I think that's right. And so, I think if you put a big caveat in front of it, like, don't trust this. Number one, don't trust this. Number two, don't trust this. Number three, don't trust this. Like, you can't trust the results from it to make any kind of a decision in life. Like, even a recipe, it might give you some tips on, like how to do a party. But to do a recipe, you're probably going to burn your food, or it's a coin toss. So if you ask it how to cook a steak, GPT-3 might burn the steak. Kind of unreliable. And I think that's what I'm wondering, if GPT-4 becomes reliable. Will any of this be reliable? And then there's the lawsuits on top of it, Molly. Like, that's unresolved. Citations. Where did it get this data? And so what this is going to do, if this gets released into the wild when Google releases theirs, the reason Google doesn't want to do this is they don't want to get sued.
I know.
And the lawsuits are already here. Google's a big target. But I guess now people are just saying, hey, we're going to deal with the lawsuits in the rearview mirror, like YouTube did, like Napster did. And in YouTube, they survived, and in Napster, it didn't.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens here. But like
the rollout, I mean, for all of OpenAI's original stated intent, we are now fully in beg forgiveness rather than ask permission territory. Like, we're full steam ahead here, and damn the consequences. And the consequences could be pretty rough for a while. Pretty rough.
And you got to think with GPT-4, I think they're going to have to roll back some of the training in it, because I don't know if you saw, Elon tweeted publicly that he removed OpenAI's access to the Twitter fire hose, and that, the fire hose or the API is now paid, where it's going to be paid. You have to pay to use the data, which has been Facebook's position all along, right?
Right.
And Craigslist's position, where it's not an untenable position to say, this is our data, you can't use it to train your AI model. I think most people take that position. So that means there must be people who are looking at this and all the money being made. And if you have data that's in ChatGPT-3 right now, like if they scrape Quora or if they scrape Reddit, you got to think Reddit's on the phone with Sam Altman or Quora saying, and Microsoft saying, or Yelp. So if you're Yelp or Quora, you got to be on the phone with these people saying, are you indexing me to train your AI? If so, we're going to file a lawsuit. You need to take us out. So I can see GPT-4 getting worse as time goes on.
Yeah.
It might get better with the data set it has, but the data sets might get ankled.
And this is where I think there's a good note of caution for all of the people who are really running for this right now, VCs and entrepreneurs. There was a report, or at least a tweet or something, that said that half of YC's new cohort is stuff that's built on top of ChatGPT. It makes sense. We've talked about how if you have a thing with a really narrow implementation, there's really a possibility there. And also, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money going, like, stampeding toward this bubble, when all of the things that you just said are true. ChatGPT-4 might have a real data ingestion problem. And all the things I said are true too, which is the unintended consequences might be super terrible in a variety of ways. And I don't necessarily mean end of humanity, super terrible, right? I just mean, like, it's going to disrupt education in ways that might not be good, or it will probably put people out of work and maybe produce an inferior result. Like, who knows?
Yeah. I think it's a tool for humans. Yeah, it's going to be a tool for humans, like a research tool, just like the web is. And so people said Wikipedia would kill education, like people just copy the Wikipedia, and people do that. Then they create a plagiarism check. They say Grammarly, would like make it too easy to be a good writer. Like, so I think hogwash, like Grammarly makes you a better writer. You learn over time the changes it's making, because it tells you, like, hey, here's the mistake. Here's why we're giving you the change. So as a research tool, like, does Wikipedia net make people stupider? No. It makes people more informed. They very quickly find information that they can build arguments on top of. So I think this will augment human intelligence and performance largely, because blindly following it is not going to result in a great answer. You have to review it, for now, at least.
For now.
But people are underestimating how much progress is. I think the lesson for me is people are underestimating how much progress has been made in AI. So self-driving is, people have really derided self-driving, right? Like their Cruise and Waymo, I heard, they're lobbying to get them out of San Francisco now because they are stopping too often and causing traffic congestion. Is that, you saw that story go by?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So that, I think, was very indicative of something.
Well, I think that's,
Well, the fact that it's causing some congestion, but that it's actually working.
Right.
The fact that it's actually working is underappreciated. There are cars self-driving in San Francisco without a driver right now. And we're just like, yeah, of course there are. And it's
we're like,
wait, no.
There are so many of them that they're effing up traffic.
That's now becoming the dialogue. And we've kind of just skipped over the fact that, that's AI in the wild working. And, when this comes to, I got my chest x-ray, and it's, because I was sick and it came up negative. I don't have like an pneumonia or whatever, or upper respiratory problems, thank God.
Okay.
But I was like, hey, can I see it? And they're like, yeah, here it is. Boom. So it's obviously instant x-rays now, right? You don't have to get film developed. And I'm like, oh, okay. So are you reviewing it? She's like, no, this other office is reviewing. I'm like, oh. They're like, I'm on with the person right now. They're looking at your x-rays right now at this central office. I'm like, do you guys use AI? They're like, no, but they've been talking about that. So obviously what's going to happen next, you're going to get your x-rays, you're going to get your pre-novo, whatever, and it's just going to be an instant AI analysis informing, the doctors, the radiologists, whoever. Hey, here are some things to look at. Here are some possibilities. you're not going to make a decision based on that, but it's certainly going to point you in the right direction, just like satellite imagery does now, or weather, right?
And then what we'll be complaining about in a couple of years is how it got 9 things wrong out of, because what we're going to realize is that we're sort of 2 things. One, 85%, like I was saying with, speech to text, 85% is amazing. It's that 15% missing, though, that makes you sound like a garbled lunatic.
Yes.
And AI will probably fall into that camp in a lot of instances where it's like 85% miracle and the 15% is where the problems lie. And that's where we'll be complaining about the incidences that it missed and the things that it got wrong. But yeah, like there's no looking back here. Like this horse has left the barn. The AI era has begun.
Yes.
Buckle up.
100 million people in 7 months for ChatGPT. That is just unbelievable.
Apparently, thank you, producers. The previous record.
It
2
beat
months.
by TikTok by 7 months.
It beat TikTok. So the previous record holder was TikTok.
To get to 100 million users.
Yeah, fascinating.
Fascinating.
All right, well, next up, we're going to talk about, the truth is stranger than fiction, but next up, we're going to talk about fiction. We got Lon Harris on for another edition of This Week in Streaming. We're going to talk about the nominations for Best Picture, Spotify earnings, how they may be pivoting or have had mission accomplished in terms of spending a ton of money on content. And then James Gunn's announcement of the first chapter of the DC Universe.
It's a great discussion. And like many discussions with Lon, we could have talked for 2 hours, but we'll also talk about Best Picture and who's going to win Best Picture as well.
We need a spin-off show with Lon. All right, enjoy.
Have you ever had a frustrating experience trying to work from a hotel or a rental with choppy Wi-Fi and without a proper desk? Anyplace is built for you. Anyplace makes it easy for you to do your best work while spending time in your favorite cities. Anyplace is a housing platform that lets you rent furnished apartments that include equipped workspaces and gigabit speed internet. You'll have everything you need to be productive. A height-adjustable standing desk, ergonomic chair, widescreen monitor, professional microphone, webcam, and other useful office gear. Just bring your laptop. All of the apartment buildings have premium amenities for a comfortable stay too. 24-hour fitness centers, rooftop terraces, pools, co-working areas, and more. Anyplace lets you travel with confidence. Never work from a kitchen table again or worry about unreliable internet. So, where to next? Visit anyplace.com/twist to get $250 off your booking with the code TWIST250. That's code TWIST250 for $250 off. All right, next up on the show, Lon Harris is here for This Week in Streaming. Welcome back to the show, Lonnie Donnie.
Hey, I made it.
All right.
Had a little week off, but we're back.
We're back, and there's just so much stuff backed up. You're causing chaos on Twitter, I see. You did not like Triangle of Sadness.
I didn't. I thought I would because I like it's the same director as Force Majeure and The Square, both of which I like.
Okay.
So I sort of thought I would be into it. Nah, it's really heavy-handed. It's really on the nose. I thought the menu covers a lot of the same ground, but in a more clever, lighter, more fun way.
Huh. Interesting.
But it was nominated, Molly, for Best Picture.
I saw.
Best Director, and I mean, over some really amazing films.
Which is so funny because I feel like it's not unusual to hate a Best Picture nominee. Like, I'm surprised that people are coming at you so hard about that.
But like, this one also won the Palme d'Or. This one took won Cannes last year. I mean, it's supposed to be a great movie. It's a esteemed director. I don't know what.
It is a good movie. But what we are seeing here, you're witnessing it, everybody, is even Lon Harris has a woke ceiling.
Oh,
and this is broken through the woke. No, it is too on the nose about classism.
It's very on the nose. It's very right.
Yes.
There's no. By the time
on the nose is not the same thing as wokeism. To be clear,
spoilers.
No, it is a woke movie.
By the time everyone on the luxury yacht is like barfing and pooping everywhere, and it's literally rivers of feces flowing.
Yes.
We get it. We get it. You don't need to hit us with it quite so hard. While
rich people are gorging themselves to the point of absurdity, and now the poorest person is lording it over them and sexually harassing them. We get it. It's literally
pretty blatant. I feel
it's
like
literally the world.
A little bit more
ChatGPT could have written the script.
Oh, that's
a little
funny.
bit more,
That's
you know,
funny.
if you, when you're doing satire like that, I feel like deploying a little bit more subtlety, letting us get there for ourselves instead of hammering
Dare I
us
say,
with-
Tar did that, which
Mhm.
challenges you with the character. And this one is like,
Tar is
ChatGPT, write me a screenplay about all the tropes about classism.
Yeah, about how
race.
obnoxious rich people
Yes.
are and
Yes.
awful and clueless and pampered and all those things.
Right on.
But you're
Lon.
happy otherwise? Are you happy otherwise with the Best Picture noms?
I still haven't seen Women Talking. I really want to see that. I hate knocking it because technically I thought it was very impressive, but I also don't really feel like All Quiet on the Western Front would have been one of my top 10 as an adaptation on that book. I feel like it's a little lacking. It just feels
Haven't
like
seen
it
it
kind
yet.
of. It's good. It's well made. It's very like handsomely done, and the battle scenes are great, and it's well acted. It's not a
Hollywood
bad movie by any
loves a war
stretch.
movie, don't you think? Don't you think Hollywood just cannot resist a war movie?
It's true,
Just can't.
and yeah, especially when they're like sort of mounted in this way, and it's this very professional, like well-oiled machine of a production. But I mean, to nominate this, and like I feel like Nope and Woman King and Decision to Leave, there were so many movies I loved this year that didn't get that kind of acclaim.
Molly, are you
Mhm.
excited for Maverick being nominated?
Yeah, obviously.
Maverick wins? Are you going to
I'm
lose
have
your
to
mind?
watch it for like a 7th time.
What are the
I do
chances,
not
Lance,
gonna win.
Think
that
it is going
Maverick
to
could
win.
ever win?
No chance.
No, I think it has a chance. I wouldn't say definitely. I don't think it would be favored. I would say, to me, I feel like Everything Everywhere All at Once would be where I would like. I feel like that's leading
A
the
good
pack
film.
right now.
A good film.
I really liked it, and I feel like just the groundswell of popularity, it dominating the nominations process so much. I just feel like the momentum is all on their side.
Mhm.
I feel like Tar's got a shot. I think Top Gun's got a shot. Other movies are in play, but to me, I feel like it's probably going to be that one.
All right. There's a lot of streaming news. What do you got a favorite to win, Molly, in this group?
I am definitely on the Everything Everywhere All at Once train, and I think Tar is my dark horse.
Right. I feel like
Tar is an infinitely better film than everything. But okay.
It
doesn't have to do with-
It's not exactly like that's not what they.
That's not what they're voting
right?
on.
Like,
It's the
No.
best picture, but it's not the best picture. It's the one that makes us feel best about our vote of that group.
It's a lot
Right.
of things.
like if we look at the like history, if we look at Titanic winning or something, like you could imagine a universe where Maverick wins.
they love to. There is definitely a contingent of the Academy that likes to vote for big, popular, beloved films. I mean, Gladiator won Best Picture. Like,
That
there's a
should've-
lot of.
yeah.
There's a lot
Forrest
of like,
Gump?
this was a huge
Forrest
hit.
Gump?
Yeah, Forrest
My favorite
Gump,
film.
which was a
I hated
huge
Forrest Gump. That was
blockbuster, and it's that there are definitely a lot of examples of that. And I mean, Avatar 2
But not
picked up a Best
recently,
Picture
right?
nod.
Not recently.
Not recently.
I mean,
I don't
not as
think.
much recently.
Yeah.
But there are definitely, there is a strong political part of it.
Activists. Yeah.
And I feel like with all the attention over the last decade, Oscars So White and all of these attempts to diversify, that's on the minds of the people voting. They want to project this new image. They want to
Virtue signal.
Is it though?
I don't
Because
think
Nope
it's virtue signaling.
is
I
not
think that
nominated, right?
Nope is not nominated. But
that's Everything
They'll only
Everywhere
ever-
at Once would.
They'll only ever take it so far.
yes,
Like, you can't have,
like,
Two would have been
two
another
left.
great example of like.
I think Everything Everywhere would fit that bill of making them feel good for a lack of representation of Asian characters. That would
Well,
fit
sure. I mean,
that
Michelle
bill.
Yeoh
Yeah.
is the first Asian nominee since Asian nominee for Best Actress since the 30s. Since the 30s.
That's
Wild.
insane.
The
That's
last
insane.
time an Asian woman was nominated for Best Actress, it was Merle Oberon, and she hid her Asian ancestry so she could get roles. People didn't even know.
I was about to say, was it played by a white male? The
People
last time an
didn't
Asian
know she
woman
was Asian
was nominated
because
was
she
played by a
was
white male.
afraid she wouldn't get, romantic roles in movies.
Yeah.
Ah, fascinating. All right. Well, there's a lot going on. Spotify stock is way up. I don't know if that's because of layoffs or what.
Right.
What's going on here, Ma?
Or the Fed, thank you,
The Fed,
everybody.
yeah.
But yeah, Spotify did have layoffs. Also, though, showed strong user growth in Q4 earnings. And then kind of interestingly seems to be implementing some austerity measures around content and talent. They had some executive turnover as a result of those layoffs, including firing Chief Content Officer Don Ostroff, who was responsible, I think, for like a lot of those big blockbuster deals, right? The Rogan deal and Call Her Daddy, and like really bringing in a lot of expensive content to try to kind of put Spotify ahead. And this seems to indicate that like the margins were not there for that strategy.
Huh. Those deals were big deals, and they knew they were overpaying, I think, to make a splash and get people to listen to podcasts on Spotify, which Spotify is, I don't know if it's the number 1, 2, or 3 player, but it's definitely up there in terms of podcast consumption. So in that way, mission accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And they also had, I think they were coming in from behind. Apple dominated podcasting in the early days to the point where that was it. It was like, well, you got to get into the iTunes store. That's where people find their podcasts. And so Spotify managed to, I don't know who's leading. I don't follow it that closely, but Spotify like mostly caught up. Like at this point, I feel like if you say, check it out wherever you get your podcasts, people are thinking Apple or Spotify primarily, maybe Stitcher or a few other options.
YouTube as the third. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think it was successful in that way, but I do feel like there was a downside they maybe didn't see coming, which was when Spotify is just the hosting platform, they can be like, hey, those guys say whatever they want to say. And we're not, we're just Spotify, the company where you come listen to it. We're not in charge. But once they start making these $100 billion deals with podcasters, they own it now. People can go to Spotify and be like, why are you letting Joe Rogan say this?
I wonder that too. I wonder how much of this now, I mean, you guys know my feeling about the black hole of content spending, right? Like if you're in a race, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but like if you're in a race to get eyeballs, you have to spend absurd amounts of money on content. It's an unwinnable game because it's just an endless black hole of that spending. But I also do wonder how much of this has to do with Spotify saying, like, you know what, we don't want to necessarily be in the business of curating, choosing, and then becoming responsible for the things that are said on our platform.
Yeah, they clearly don't want to stand behind everything Joe Rogan says.
That sounds like
Apple doesn't
that sounds like an interesting theory. So the theory is, hey, we made this big splash. My theory, we made this big splash. We got ourselves to be one of the top 2 or 3. Clearly top 2, I think, places to go to listen to podcasts. We got a lot of blowback. Now we don't have to deal with that blowback if we don't do these big money deals, but we still get all the benefit of people thinking podcasts, open Spotify. Yep. So it's probably get your cake and eat it too. And then what that would mean is Joe Rogan and Call Her Daddy and Alex and all those folks will just sell to the next highest bidder.
Sure.
Which will probably be YouTube.
Quite possibly. But I mean, like,
does YouTube have a podcast specific offering, or are they building that?
They're building that. YouTube.com/podcasts. Remember, they included us in that. So if you go to YouTube.com/podcasts, they are now building a hub. And the way it's a beta, but you give them your playlist as like a proxy for your RSS feed. And so you will see them, I think, continue to work on this. I would not be surprised if you see on the YouTube app a podcast button. And in that podcast button, Molly, if you can subscribe and download those shows, right? Because downloading of shows is something they don't allow unless you have premium. But podcasts, that's kind of the core of it. Or YouTube podcasts, their own.
This Week in Startups and All In, both featured on the YouTube podcast.
I see All In featured under Bitcoin, which is hilarious. And other things too. But
This Week in Startups is under philosophy. Well done, Jason. Look at that.
Yeah, of course. There you go.
Philosophy.
Look at us.
No, it's probably picking up keywords. So they got some work to do there over time, I think.
I mean, literally every recommendation for me is like MMA.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. Every time I look at YouTube, I'm like, who do you think I am?
Yeah, those are clearly customized for you based on your subscriptions.
Right, exactly. Which is why I want all those dudes and
which is why it's all.
There are also people who take the time to do video for their podcast as a small subsection of overall podcasting.
Right.
So, work to do there. But what was their revenue like? Are they still growing? Spotify,
I believe so. I don't know. We don't have earnings details. It looks like
18% year over year, 3.16 billion euros. Free cash flow, 73 million euros. So I guess they're solvent.
Negative.
Free cash flow, negative 73 million. So we don't know how much cash they have. But premium subscribers up 14% year over year in a down market. That's pretty good, I guess.
So it was negative free cash flow, but Q4 cash and short-term investments looked like they were 3.3 billion.
Okay, that's good.
And then monthly active users were up 20% year over year. So they seem to. I mean, they have definitely, like, if it was all a plan, spend $1 billion, right? Like buy eyeballs and then keep them. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, they got everybody to subscribe to podcasts inside of Spotify. They also bought Gimlet, right? And they bought The Ringer, but The Ringer is still running independently. So that'll be interesting to see what happens. But they'd made cuts of a bunch of
they cut a bunch of Gimlet stuff.
It's not like the streaming platforms for TV content, just because the idea of exclusivity didn't really take hold in the podcasting world. Podcasters are selling ads on their own show. They want the maximum audience possible to be able to hear those ads. So it's not really in most of their favor to be like, I'm going to go exclusive to these guys or that guys. Unlike TV shows where they're all like, we're on Prime Video.
The default that's a good point. Default is exclusive.
Right.
The only exclusives they had were Call Her Daddy,
Rogan, and maybe
a couple
like
of
one
other
or two
stuff,
others.
Obama and Bruce. That's terrible.
But right. So I listen to a bunch of podcasts on Spotify, but none of them are Spotify inclusive. I could jump over to another platform and listen to How Did This Get Made? They're everywhere. Yeah. So I feel like if you're Spotify, like, you don't need to be paying for your blockbuster content. People are going to produce it and put it on your platform for free.
All right. Before we go to the most important news of the week. Okay, Molly.
Oh, well, I was going to say, what we forget about all the time that I think is like a slow and steady turtle here is Amazon. Amazon Music has podcasting built in, and they just keep, it's almost like a Microsoft-esque strategy. It's this just like, we're still here, we're here, we got a new feature, we got this thing, we got like a Clubhouse type thing, like da-da-da-da-da. Like,
and they get a lot of people like my mom who's just gotten used to using Alexa. So she'll just say, pull up this podcast, and that's on Amazon because Alexa's pulling it up.
Yeah. And if you don't think to change the default on your Alexa devices, it's pretty...
Which, of course, my mom did
hardly
not,
anybody does, right?
Amazon go into settings, defaults, podcasting.
And
she's on Amazon Podcast.
Nick reminds us, too, that Audible signed the Obamas away from Spotify. Like, I think that there are way more ears in the Amazon ecosystem than we realize. Dark horse.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, dark horse for sure.
Definitely, yeah.
And they also like to spend money. Who should buy the rights to Joe Rogan, the number one podcast in the world? Who should buy the rights next? If he does do another deal, he could go on his own and just sell his own ads. That's probably best for him and just be available on all platforms. But if Joe Rogan were to do another 5-year deal or something like that, who would be best? Who would get the most out of it? Who's the most likely to do it? Who should do it? Who should back up the Brinks truck to bring Joe Rogan's 30 million people?
I feel like he's just...
It's dangerous.
Yeah, like you're going to get a wave of bad press when you do it. You're going to immediately get a lot of people like, why he's an anti-vaxxer. He's promoting misinformation. He's a fascist. And I'm not saying I agree with those things or not, folks. Listen, I don't want to start
we're just saying like it's a risky deal to make.
That's the word out there in the world. You're going to hear from those people who feel that way. Neil Young still doesn't have his songs on Spotify. It's a real bummer. Sometimes I want to listen to, Zuma, and I can't because
I see YouTube doing it.
Yeah,
I think they would.
So,
I
YouTube
think
would jump the fence.
I feel like YouTube
willing to absorb that
could potentially jump the fence. Although they haven't. Well, I mean, they like incubate creators, but they don't play that direct content game.
I feel like unless
Jason's got an idea, we should just stop speculating because Jason clearly has an idea.
Yeah, if Ben Shapiro and Daily
Wire, lay it on
want
us,
to
boss.
jump in.
Lay it on us.
Have an idea. Obviously, YouTube should do it, right? But they're not going to do it because they don't want to set the precedent of giving guaranteed revenue deals because their holding has been sharing revenue. So it just screws up their model. So it's, even though they should do it, I don't think they will. Then you have Amazon, as you astutely pointed out, but maybe they don't want to deal with the chaos and the backlash. But who don't give an F and who kind of leans into the intellectual dark web? If you picked an executive who did, it would be Mark Zuckerberg. He is intellectual dark web curious.
Interesting.
You remember he went on Lex Friedman. He went on Joe Rogan. He's doing MMA.
He's doing MMA.
He's slaughtering his own goats for meat.
He kills goats and then drinks their blood. He's exactly in the Joe Rogan kill zone. I would not be surprised to see him.
He's probably a fanboy too.
Absolutely, he is.
He's a listener. Yes, I bet he's a listener.
Avid listener. And so if he were to pick up Joe Rogan and put it inside of an exclusive inside of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, and you had to have one of those 3 apps to listen to it, that's accretive to him. And he's letting Trump back on. He wants both sides. He's got Mark Andreessen on the board. Like, these are meme lords. It's in his wheelhouse. I would say
it's
the best person to do it.
It's bold. They haven't really done content deals for a while, so it's like if you're coming back, maybe you make him the anchor show in the metaverse.
Rogan in the metaverse, you can go watch.
They had
Rogan.
Facebook podcasting and they shut it down because it had no differentiate. But there is an ongoing debate inside of Facebook right now. Should they really lean into splitting revenue with creators because they see that they're losing that battle? And this would be a great opening salvo.
Yeah.
You just do a deal with
Crowder now.
Who's the guy? Louder with Crowder. You get louder with Crowder. You just go right down the Ben Shapiro.
Oh my god!
I mean,
just go right down the intellectual dark web.
That's like half of what you see.
Koch brothers Rolodex and start calling those guys.
Pretty much.
Download Instagram and get my podcast.
Okay. Time to talk about Last of Us.
Enough.
All right. Did you watch it, Molly? Did you watch it? Because you hate zombies. You didn't watch episode 3.
I am so scared. And then I asked my friends who were watching it, I was like, okay, scale 1 to 10. They were like, well, here's the thing. It's the scariest zombies I've seen since the World War Z. Like, they're fast. And I was like,
I feel like you could watch episode 3
and be
independent of the rest of the show. I don't think there's hardly any zombies.
No zombies.
That's what I've heard. Episode 3, maybe episode 1, episode 2,
Episode 3 is my new Notting Hill. Like, I love Notting Hill. It's like my favorite rom-com. This episode 3 of Last of Us is now my favorite rom-com. It's right up there with Notting Hill.
Okay, I'm just going to watch that one. I'm just going to watch that as a standalone. And I love Nick Offerman so much and Murray Bartlett. What a delight!
Just watch it without. I think you could. The context.
Yeah,
there's a global
I get it.
Apocalypse going on. But it's not really very violent. There's not a lot of horror beats in it. It's mostly a love story.
But once again, the big story here is that
the
HBO,
numbers.
Warner Brothers Discovery, and Zaslav has created must-watch appointment television. Correct, Lon?
Yeah, I think the conversation that's happening around it, it's interesting when something like Wednesday hits on Netflix. It's huge for a minute, and there was that dance everybody was doing or whatever, but the binge model just means it's a quick burst. Everybody's into Wednesday, and then okay, what else you got? That's over. And I feel like the episodic weekly, we've been already talking about Last of Us for close to a month, and there's still months left of season 1. You really can't capture that with the Netflix model. There's just no way to do it. You can't sustain interest for that long if I can watch it all in one weekend.
And you can't spend money like this. Like, this is HBO showing both discipline and quality, right? Like, you make 4 unbelievable appointment viewing shows a year, and you parcel them out a week at a time, while Netflix is just, again, lighting money on fire, just pouring money into bingeable content that's like immediately over.
I haven't really seen a lot of very specific budget stuff about. I actually feel like Last of Us is not as expensive as what we would think of as. It's not a Lord of the Rings level investment. Like, it's a lot of locations, but I don't know. It's smaller scale than you'd maybe think based on like a global apocalypse. It's more like a Walking Dead. We're like, okay, let's stay here for the full episode in one location with 3
10, 15 million per episode. Which, when you think about a movie's 2 hours and they spend hundreds of millions on a 2-hour movie.
A Game of Thrones might be a 50, 60 million per episode investment if it's, Battle of the Bastards or Blackwater Bay or one of these massive scale, there's nothing like that so far.
Even better. They can have like a high quality, expensive show that isn't outrageously expensive.
Right. I think that's kind of the sweet spot is if you could figure out a Euphoria or a White Lotus, like these shows that are doing so well, they're not all Game of Thrones level investments. White Lotus, they take over 4 seasons for a few months and they pay a bunch of actors. Right. That's it. No special effects.
HBO is crushing it. So The Last of Us is, tracking 21.3 million viewers.
That's
per episode in extended, per episode in extended viewing.
So that's White HBO on Sunday nights and then HBO Max, afterwards. It's both.
And then that third episode put up absolutely insane numbers. Rose significantly over. Like episode 1 did 4.7 million. Episode 2 rose 22% to 5.7 million because no one could stop talking about it. And then episode 3 rose another 12% to 6.4 million. I mean, this thing is a hit.
Yeah. And that's the live audience on Sunday night. And then you triple
those
that.
Are first night numbers. Yeah.
Those are the first night numbers and you triple that. And this thing's going to catch heat. It's going to be like Sopranos. It's going to be like Breaking Bad, where people jump in the second or third season and work backwards. Because people got into White Lotus and watched season 2, but then they went back and watched season 1.
It's growing at a sort of a Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon sort of rate at this point. And if you look at Game of Thrones, this is where it started. And by the end, it was 50 million viewers per episode, 60 million. So, I mean, they're on track. If they keep going at their current heat and building momentum at this pace, they're on track for another like massive hit.
Incredible.
And it's a video game adaptation. Like, I'm such a nerd that I just keep coming back to that. Like that.
And there's only 2 games, so they've got maybe 2 seasons of runway, maybe 2.5, 3 if they make the second game last. But then, you know, like who knows how they're going to keep this going? They could franchise this out.
What did you think of the DC announcement, Lon? James Gunn. He did like a 6-minute announcement of their slate.
And it's a little complicated because there's basically 3 tracks. There is the stuff we're already working on that we've got to finish up through the rest of 2023 track, which is the Flash movie with Ezra Miller, the Aquaman 2 sequel with Jason Momoa, all the other stuff that's sort of going. Shazam 2, exactly. And then there's the Elseworlds, this is stuff we're working on, but it's not going to be part of the main DC Universe continuity.
Elseworlds, outside of it, non-canon.
That's a DC Comics brand. Elseworlds is like, here's a Batman comic, but it takes place in an alternate reality that won't affect the main Batman storyline. So that's stuff like Robert Pattinson's Batman 2, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker 2, the Harley Quinn HBO Max show, that kind of stuff. It's like, stuff happens on there and it doesn't impact. And then there's the new main DC Universe continuity that James Gunn is going to kick off. That starts summer 2025 with his new Superman movie, which is called Superman Rebirth. We're going to get a Booster Gold HBO Max show, which I'm excited about. We're going to get a Swamp Thing film, which is very exciting, I think. And then, there's a bunch of other projects there's a Supergirl, like a gritty Supergirl movie coming up where she's sort of troubled and a lot of projects there. My concern is not that any of these things sound bad, because I think they all sound kind of fun for the most part. Yeah. We get a Green Lantern show that they're comparing to True Detective. Viola Davis is going to do an HBO Max show where she returns as Amanda Waller from the Suicide Squad movies.
Cool. Your prediction, will it be?
We'll end on this. It's a little all over the place.
Okay, let me just ask you this. James Gunn is a supreme talent. Here is your question.
Gunn's very good.
Supreme talent. So, will this be as good as what we've seen from DCU to date, which has been obviously a mixed bag, so will be better than, let's call it the Snyderverse? And
the Snyderverse is where we've been since
Man of Steel. And the Wonder Woman verse. Patty
Jenkins, but we call it the Snyderverse because Man of Steel and then his Justice League, that was like he cast a lot of these actors. He kind of laid
better
the
than Snyderverse. So if you were to rank MCU to date, Snyderverse to date, and then we put in Gunnverse, DC Gunn.
I mean, it's really hard.
Where will it rank?
I think so much.
1, 2, or 3.
So much is going to come down to this Superman movie. It's very hard to say. Like, I feel like he's putting a lot on, because this Superman movie is now
Superman. Young Superman.
Now a total franchise reboot, and people are going to be looking to that movie for like, here's our starting point. It's a very dangerous precedent. It's kind of another. Remember that Tom Cruise The Mummy movie where it was like Universal's Dark Universe, and it all starts here, and it's the kickoff, and they tease like 8 other movies, and then nobody cared. You're always in danger of that happening. If that happens with this Superman movie, Gunn is immediately behind the 8 ball, like right away.
It's basically like you take a supreme talent and you give him too much money, and then he turns into Adam Newman. It could go either way.
I mean, right? Maybe if the Superman movie is a huge hit, then who's to say? Maybe it's going to be amazing. But like, this is kind of what happened with Batman v Superman. Snyder put so many eggs in that basket. I'm introducing Batman. I'm introducing the Justice League. I'm introducing all of these threads. And then when that movie didn't really do that well, now he's in this awkward place where he's constantly going back to a movie people didn't really like. My gut tells me that I don't think this is another MCU. I don't really feel like anybody's going to recapture.
So it's not number one. MCU stays number one. So then is it better than Snyderverse?
I feel like there's a lot of potential here. I trust James Gunn's instincts more than Zack Snyder's myself. Like, not that I like some Zack Snyder movies, but I feel like I'm more aligned with James Gunn's view of what these movies and this world should be like. Sure. And I think there's some exciting stuff. The Authority, he's doing a team up film there. Paradise Lost, he's doing a show set on Themyscira. Wonder Woman.
I'm looking forward to.
Home Island. So that sounds good. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff here.
If they do Themyscira, are they going to bring back Gal Gadot?
He's the only two that we've gotten definite. They're done. We know Henry Cavill's done as Superman, and we know Ben Affleck's done as Batman.
Okay.
Other than that,
he might keep Wonder Woman, might keep Aquaman.
He might keep one. It doesn't sound
And he
good.
might keep The Flash, he said.
He might keep Ezra Miller. He might keep... Momoa is definitely still in the mix, but we don't know who he's playing. Yeah. But who's to say? And I mean, because Viola Davis is going to stay around as Amanda Waller, they're doing a new season of Peacemaker with John Cena, so those characters are going to stay. So anybody in the Suicide Squad, Margot Robbie might still be Harley Quinn in something.
Who knows?
Because we're going to have Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, but that's an Elseworlds project. Yep. So,
all right.
You know what I mean? It's such a grab bag.
We got him riled up. All right, Lon.
Got him riled up.
You're awesome. You're the greatest. We'll see you next time.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in on a Thursday. Tomorrow, Rachel's getting called up to the big leagues. Molly's out of town. So Rachel is going to read the Google, Amazon, and Apple earnings. Molly's out on the slopes. You going to ski?
Yeah, nice. I am. I'm skiing in your hood.
Oh, be careful.
Which I don't normally do. I'm not skiing like you ski.
Just, you don't want to push it. When you get towards the end of the day, there is the last run curse.
Yeah.
Our boy Matt in our partnership department took a spill yesterday on the last run. Last run curse exists.
No.
Always go easier on the last run.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to producer Nick, who on the last run is like,
don't say last run. No, don't say last run. That's the
just
rule.
don't say last run.
You never say last run. And then you
just when you get to the bottom, you say, I think that's a good last run.
I'm the laziest skier in the world, you guys. I like to have fun, don't get hurt, like 4 to 6 nice long blue runs and then a hot toddy. That's my jam.
There you go. Perfect.
That's my jam. Yeah, so thanks for taking over, Rachel. I appreciate it. I'm excited about this little last minute, John.
Enjoy, and we'll see you all
Monday.
tomorrow. And Molly Monday.
I'll see you Monday. All right, bye-bye.